I go to doggy daycare every once in a while. My dog goes to doggy daycare. I should go myself. Are we ready?
Whenever Steve calls it.
Okay.
Ready to begin? Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it, it's here.
He doesn't, you don't, it muddles everything.
All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting, 4:30 PM, Wednesday, December 30th, 2020. We can skip the public meeting notice. We have all of our commissioners present. We may have somebody that may call in though. So, item 3 would be the election of officers.
Okay, the city code requires that commission and boards elect their officers at their December meeting. And at the present time, the chair is Larry Mack, the vice chair is Jeff Golden, and the secretary is Kate Mako. Mr. Golden and Mr. Karnitz are serving their second term and are at the end of it, so they cannot be officers for 2021. So those are the 3 positions that we have: chair, vice chair, and secretary. And I guess the floor is open for nominations.
Commissioners, any thoughts on, anybody have any interest of being the chair, vice chair, or secretary?
Annie, how about you? Chairman, chairperson?
I would be interested only if Larry's not interested.
It's totally open, so,
Well, I would nominate Annie Earl for chairman, chairperson.
okay, so we have a nomination for Ann Earl for chair for the Planning Commission. All in favor?
We should have a second.
I'll second. Good, thanks, sir.
We have a motion and a second for Ann Earl to be chair for the Planning Commission for 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So Ann will be the new chair for 2021 for the Planning Commission. Now we're going to look for a vice chair for the Planning Commission.
Larry Matt?
I'm willing to,
Nominate you as
I'll second that.
so we have a motion and a second for Larry Mack for vice chair for the Planning Commission for 2021. Everybody signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Secretary for 2021 for the Planning Commission. Kate, would you be willing to take that responsibility?
Certainly, that's fine.
So we have a motion and a second for Kate Mako to be the chair, or the secretary for the Planning Commission for 2021. Everybody signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, who made the motion and who made the second?
I made the motion,
Okay. And the second was,
Ann.
thank you.
So we've got those 3 filled, so we should be good to go on item 3.1. Item 4.1 would be the approval of the minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 planning meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve them. Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented from the December 2nd, 2020 meeting. Everybody signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5 will be a public hearing to consider the application of Steve Akre requesting a conditional use permit to locate a storage facility on the property zone B2 Service Business District at 1710 South Minnesota Street. The property is legally described as Lot 3, Block 83, south of Center Street. Look for staff report.
Okay. So a little background information on this application. The deadline for the decision is February 1st, 2021. The land use designation based on the comprehensive plan is business. Surrounding land uses based on the comprehensive plan to the north, south, and west are businesses. To the east is industry. Its zoning designation is the B2 Service Business District. The surrounding zoning to this property to the north, south, and west is B2, and then to the east is I2, the General Industrial District. Currently, the current site land use for this property, it is currently vacant, with the southwest corner being used as an access drive connecting the lower and upper parking areas. Current area land uses include McDonald's restaurant to the north, to the east, storage buildings, to the south, the Perkins restaurant, and then to the west, Akre and Clark Eye Care. Notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and published in the Journal on December 19th of 2020. To date, we have not received comment on this project or application. The project description. The purpose of the B2 zoning district is to provide a district for a wide range of services and goods which might be incompatible with the uses permitted in retail business districts. It is intended that the B2 Service Business District be located in separate areas which may be adjacent to other retail business districts or in close proximity to a major street. And that's section 9.10 of the city code. Permitted uses in the B2 district include a combination of retail, service, office, and light industrial businesses. Other business activity of the same general character as those listed as permitted uses are allowed in the B2 zoning district with a conditional use permit. A storage facility is a permitted use in the I1 planned industrial and I2 general industrial zoning districts. The lot dimensions for this property are 50 feet by 165 feet. The total land area is 8,250 square feet or 0.19 acres. The application provides the following information on the project. A 30-foot by 60-foot storage building would be constructed for personal use. The building would blend with the adjacent Akre Clark office building. In order to recommend approval of the permit, the Planning Commission will need to determine that 1, the proposed use is of the same general character as permitted uses in the B2 zone, and 2, the request complies with conditions required for granting a conditional use permit. And that's based on section 9.82 subdivision 2 of the city code. The reverse side of the conditional use permit application lists 7 conditions and the applicant's response to them. An 8th question asks, why should the city approve your request? And the applicant's response was that similar uses on the property immediately across the street, similar property immediately across Minnesota Street with a similar use. So across Minnesota Street from this one, there are also storage buildings. Since 2000, the city has approved 12 similar requests to place storage uses in a B2 zoning district. We have a number of attachments. Now should I go up to the screen here? We have a number of attachments, so we're going to try one thing new here just so the public can see a little bit better. I'm going to go through the attachments on the screen up here, then everybody can see what we're looking at. Doesn't work for you, Stephen. So attachment one is the application for a conditional use permit. You can see questions on page number 2, the 8 questions and the responses to those questions by the applicant. Attachment number 2 is an aerial photo showing the location of the proposed use. You can see McDonald's here to the north, Akre and Clark Eye Care.
Stay on, Mike.
Sorry. Akre and Clark Eye Care towards Broadway, and then the storage buildings behind this property. Third attachment is the zoning map. This pink color is all the B2 zoning district. This blue right here is the I2 general industrial district. This is an aerial photo showing approximately where the building would be located on the property. I want to make one change here, is that on the north side of this property, it shows 5 feet in your attachments, but the application actually says 10 feet. So he is proposing to put that building 10 feet from that north property line. There are a couple site photos in attachment 5 looking towards Broadway, and then again looking towards McDonald's. So staff would recommend approval of the request for the following reasons. 1, the request complies with the conditions required for granting of a conditional use permit. 2, the proposed uses of the same general character as some of the permitted uses in the B2 zone. 3, the storage buildings would generally be less intense than most B2 land uses. The city has previously allowed this type of facility in the B2 zoning districts with no apparent problems, and storage buildings are located east of the property. With our recommendation, we would also recommend 4 conditions. 1, that the applicant will pay the cost to record the permit with the Brown County Recorder's Office. 2, that no exterior storage will be permitted on the property. 3, that no commercial or business storage uses are permitted. And 4, the owner will provide a landscape plan for the property prior to requesting a building permit for the project. And finally, we have 2 potential motions, 1 approving the request and 2 denial of the request. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, John. Open it up for the commissioners for discussion.
So there will be a curb cut to be able to come in from the street,
Right.
right?
I'm going to scroll back up to attachment number 4. We tried to draw in approximately where that curb cut is going to be on Minnesota there. So it'll be to the north of the existing curb cut that goes into Akre and Clark.
Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of thinking that would actually improve the property. You have a nice neat building there. I don't see any objection on my part.
And I do like the fact that the city put the landscaping clause in there. I think that's a big part, especially the aesthetics, the way it looks around there and everything else. So I think that's a nice feature that the city did put that in there.
John, I've got a question in regards to the no commercial or business storage uses are permitted. How would that be enforced? So say if they had to source some supplies for their business and they ended up in there.
Okay, I think the purpose of that particular requirement, and we've applied that to all storage buildings of this type, is that this is for personal use, and so from a parking standpoint, you only need a limited number of parking spaces. If all of a sudden it becomes a business or a commercial use, then we're talking about a need, in all likelihood, for more parking. So that's why we want to have some control over what takes place there.
I appreciate you, Dave, saying that because, say after, if he sells the property one day and somebody wants to run a repair shop, come in from Minnesota Street, then we're covered.
Yes.
So that makes sense to me.
Or if the property should be split.
That too, because property could be split off for minimum dimension on the property.
Well, no, this is going to be a separate parcel of property.
Separate
Or this
parcel.
is a separate
Oh,
parcel of
it
property.
is?
Yes.
It is
Yes.
already,
It
okay,
is- It is separate from the Akre and Clark site.
okay.
My concerns would be by allowing a personal use in this district, are we taking away from a business that could potentially be locating here in the future? Kind of where my mind goes in that regard, that
Yeah.
would be a pretty ideal space when there's not
I
much
think,
space.
given the characteristics of the property, its location, that this is perhaps not a good site for a business use. I think its use for storage purposes is appropriate. There's, I just see a limited number of potential business opportunities that might be looking at a piece of property like that.
I would agree with Dave, because Broadway would be your B2, and that's where you're gonna have your visibility, your signage. That's,
Considering the need for additional parking, if it were to be commercial, that's a pretty small space to be sticking a building and parking lot.
and if you go one block to the north, you've got similar storage buildings already, right off of, on the 1500 block there, you've got.
Yeah, I think as you proceed to the north and you look at the business uses there, they're more of, storage, almost some manufacturing uses, quasi-manufacturing. So it's, you don't see, a lot of commercial uses in those areas.
Any other thoughts?
Make a motion to approve with conditions.
I'll second that motion.
Make a motion to approve with conditions.
We have a motion to approve with conditions.
I'll second that motion.
We have a second. This is, when this would not be, this is a public hearing, so is there anybody else in the audience who would like to be heard on this matter? We have a motion and a second. We have nobody else, so I'm going to close the public hearing. And everybody signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. This will go to the January
Fifth.
5th council meeting for recommendation for approval. Item 5.2.
Sorry,
Oh.
Chair, before we move on, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Because we've had, and maybe because I'm new, it seems like a large number, but now we're at 13 that we've approved. Do we need to be looking at this code then to update that, or is that not considered yet a high number that we've been approving for this year?
I think that's something that's worth having a discussion about when we amend the zoning ordinance, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that satisfy your question, Ashley? All right. Item 5.2 is consider the application of Mike Kral on behalf of M&D Properties LLC requesting a conditional use permit for a community unit project on the property legally described as part of Oak Bluff's 8th edition and to be plotted as Lot 5, Block 1, Oak Bluff's 9th edition. The street address of the property is 1406 to 1446 6 North Street. We'd look for staff report.
Okay, the property is generally located north of 6 North Street, east of North Highland Avenue, and south of 7th North Street. The city council approved the final plat of Oak Bluff's 9th edition Oak Bluff's 9th edition with conditions following a public hearing at its September 15th, 2020 meeting. 2 of the conditions have not been met. Their status is as follows. 1 was to enter into a development agreement with the city for the property to be platted. The draft agreement was sent to the applicant on November 12th, 2020. And after this report was prepared, did receive a email from the attorney representing the property owner, and I think that matter will be resolved very quickly. The second item was the need to comply with the community unit requirements that are found in Section 9.08 Subdivision 3C and Section 9.08 Subdivision 6 of the City Code. And that is the purpose of this particular request. So the deadline for a decision on this matter is February 13th, 2021. The comprehensive plan designates the property for medium-density residential and public semi-public. Surrounding land uses in the comprehensive plan to the north and west is low-density residential, to the south is medium-density residential, and to the east is public semi-public. Zoning designation for the property is R3, Multiple Family Residence District. Surrounding zoning to the north is R1, which is Single Family Residence District, and R2, which is Single and Two Family Residence District. To the east, it's R1 and R3. To the south, it's R3, and to the west, it's R1. Current site use is cropland, and some of it is vacant. Current area land uses, to the north we have single-family residences and twin homes. To the east, it's vacant in the way of the cross. To the south, we have the Diocese of New Ulm office building, and to the west, we have single-family residences. Notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and was published in the Journal on December 19th. Public comment, we have received 2 phone calls with questions and comments about the project. And then after the agenda went out, I did receive an email on this particular request, and I'd like to read that into the record at this time. So it's directed to the Office of the Community Development Director, City of New Ulm, City Planning Commission. We are writing to express our deep concerns over the potential approval of this project. This residential area has seen an extensive increase in traffic with the completion of North Highland Avenue, the relocation of New Ulm Senior High School, and the development of the Diocese of New Ulm residential additions. North Highland from 5th North to Oak Street presents a real challenge to navigate when school is in session. Traffic is extremely congested in the morning when school is opening, at the noon hour for open lunch, and again at the school's end of day. The matter is further complicated when sports events are being held at various times during the day. Public safety is a significant concern as well as the traffic flow. The addition of 3 fourplex townhouses with the potential to add an additional 20 to 24 vehicles to this area can only serve to further add to the congestion. The Diocese of New Ulm Pastoral Center joins this development. When the threat of COVID-19 is behind us, we'll see a significant uptick in usage and in traffic flow. Based on the already significant increase in traffic density to the area and the potential public safety concerns, we ask that the Planning Commission turn the rezoning request down. Sincerely, Bill and Joanne Brennan, 1510 Lee Avenue, New Ulm, Minnesota 56073. One thing I would note that this is not a rezoning request. This is a request for a conditional use permit. I'll say, continuing with the staff report, status of utilities, necessary utility systems are in place to serve the project area. Park area, the comprehensive plan does not designate a park within the platted area. Project description. The subject property would be platted as Lot 5, Block 1, Oak Bluffs 9th Edition. Lot 5 would have a total lot area of 3.77 acres and approximate dimensions of 287 feet by 590 feet. A majority of the south side of the property would abut 6 North Street, and the west side of the property would abut North Highland Avenue. The applicant's project would involve the construction of 3 fourplexes on the property. Section 9.08 subdivision 3C allows community unit projects in the R3 zoning district with a conditional use permit. This requirement was part of ordinance number 00-049 adopted on July 6th, and we have a mistake here. That should be in the year 2000, not 2020. This ordinance amended the zoning of the property that was being platted as Oak Bluff's first edition into R1, R2, and R3 districts. So, before there was any development in the area that was owned by the Diocese of New Ulm, the property was rezoned to R3 with the condition that it had to go through the community unit project process. Subdivision 6 of that section provides standards for the adoption of a community unit project. A comparison of the standards and the proposed project is provided in the table found below. Number 1 is it has to conform to all regulations of the R3, which is the multifamily residence district. The proposed project complies with those standards. Number 2, the minimum land area has to be 2 acres. The land area in this case is 3.77 acres. 3, it must be served by public sewer and water systems. And the proposed project would be served by these systems. As a matter of fact, it must connect to them. Number 4, private roadways within the project shall be installed to city specifications for public roadways. This particular requirement would not apply in this situation, since the only roads that are being constructed are access roads to a dwelling unit. And I did review that particular matter with the city attorney. Number 5, establish the standards for mobile home parks. Obviously, the proposed use does not fit that classification or that item. So the project would comply with those standards or requirements. Section 9.80, subdivision 6C, requires the applicant to submit a general development plan for the project. The general development plan is to include the following. Number 1, the proposed site and existing development on adjacent properties. Number 2, the proposed size, location, and arrangement of buildings. Number 3, the parking areas and stall arrangement. Number 4, entrance and exit drives. Number 5, landscaping features. Number 6, dimensions. And number 7, proposed sewer and water systems. In your attachments, attachment number 5 is the general development plan. To staff's knowledge, this is the first request for a conditional use permit to approve a community unit project. In order to recommend approval, the commission will need to determine that the request complies with the conditions required for the granting of a conditional use permit. And those are found in section 9.82, subdivision 2. The reverse side of the application lists the 7 conditions and the applicant's response to them. An 8th question asks, why should the city approve your request? And the applicant's response was that it's a good fit in the area. Approval of this application for a conditional use permit will also require a finding that the project complies with the regulations for a community unit project found in subdivision 6B. We just reviewed that. And that the general development plan complies with the requirements found in subdivision 6C. Only one motion will be necessary for this request. Staff compared the proposed projects with 2 other residential land uses that would be permitted on the subject property, and we used current city code regulations for that purpose. Number 1 is if you were to construct apartment buildings on that unit, that property, how many units could you place on it? And using the standard that we have in our code of 2,000 square feet of lot area, for each unit in the R3 zoning district, the property could support, with 3.77 acres, the property could support 82 apartment units. Secondly, single-family dwellings we looked at. And we took Oak Bluff's first edition, which is to the north of this property, and within that area, there are approximately 37 dwelling units. And so we divided the area that they were located in by that number of units, and we came up with a lot area of 0.323 acres per unit. Now, that computation also included street area. So that's why it's maybe a little bit higher than you typically would find in a single-family lot within that subdivision. Then we also looked at the single-family portion of Milford Heights Second Edition, and so that's the area that abuts Fender Drive, which is north of Einhorn Street. And you may remember there's a row of single-family dwellings on that side. And then we just kind of flipped that, that lot area to the other side so we could include the street in the computation. And we came up with 0.315 acres per unit. So both the Oak Bluffs First Edition and our computation with this particular parcel of property, they're pretty close together. So it's about 0.319 acres per dwelling unit. And so if you take the subject property, which is 3.77 acres, and you divide it by 0.319 units or acres, your result is 11.82 dwelling units. So they're proposing 12. So this is, from a density standpoint, what this shows is that this is comparable to a single-family dwelling area, again, from a density standpoint. So we have a number of attachments, and we'll again show those on the screen. If you have any questions as we go through this, feel free to ask them. So the first is the application. Okay, the second is was part of the application. These were attachments, and they were intended to address the criteria that is in place for a community unit project. So attachment 2 is a site location map. Attachment 3 shows you the location of this particular project, so it's a zoning map. So you can see the R3 area is in brown, the yellow is single family, and the orange is 2-family. Item 4 is the listing of, or attachment 4 is the city code requirements for a community unit project. Item 5 is the general development plan. And then we went through and listed the different criteria that are in place. There are 7 of them. And then the attachment where you would find information regarding that particular item. Item 6, and it'd be nice if we could blow this up, but this is the site plan that was provided to us showing the 3 units. There is a requirement for stormwater retention ponds. In this case, they're going with rain gardens. And they showed their preferred location. There's 3 of them. And then they identified other alternative locations. Item 7 is, this is part of the general development plan. And so these are drawings that were prepared by the owner. And this is what the project would look like. The floor plan.
Dave, what's the square footage of these units? Approximate.
1,650.
Including garage space?
No.
Okay.
Did everybody hear that?
So
Okay. Keep on going, John. So then we have a site plan. Or excuse me, this is an aerial photograph of the property. And then we took aerial photographs from all 4 sides. And then we have ground level photographs. And then finally, this is from one of our improvement plans. This shows the utility mains that are currently in 6 North Street. So in order to get access, to water and sewer service, they simply have to run services off of these mains. Okay, any questions about the attachments? Okay, if not, I'm going to go on to the recommendation. Staff would recommend approval of the following: the conditional use permit with conditions as submitted by Mike Kral on behalf of M&D Properties LLC. With that, a finding that the project complies with the requirements of Section 9.08, Subdivision 6B, and that the general development plan complies with Section 9.08, Subdivision 6C. Reasons to approve this request, again, with conditions include the following: that the request complies with the conditions required for the granting of a conditional use permit. Again, that's Section 9.82 of the City Code. That the project site has access to 2 collector streets. 3, that with the exception of its north side, the site is buffered from surrounding residential uses by the Pastoral Center and North Highland Avenue. 4, that the north portion of the property has been zoned R3 since 1968. That's not a real large portion, but nonetheless a portion. And that the remainder of the property was rezoned to R3 in 2000. And R3 is the appropriate location for this type of project. Then the City of New Ulm conducted a housing study dated May 2017. And as part of that study, there were the following statements. The first is that New Ulm does have a large number of empty nester and senior-headed households. Age-based projections show future growth, especially in the 65 to 74-year-old age group. This should result in increased demand for age-appropriate housing that provides appropriate amenities to older adult buyers and offers a no-maintenance option of ownership. Another section read attached housing, and I guess we consider this to be attached housing. Provides desirable alternatives for empty nesters and seniors to move out of their single-family homes. These existing homes then become available to younger families. It is important for the community to offer a range of life cycle housing options. So in staff's opinion, there is a need for this type of housing in the community, and that this is an appropriate location for this type of housing. Recommended conditions. The recommended conditions, there are 6 of them. Number 1, the applicant will pay the cost to record the permit with the Brown County Recorder's Office. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit for the project, the developer shall submit a landscape plan that complies with city code requirements. 3, the applicant will provide for city review and approval a copy of the documents required to form the association and common interest community for the residents of the property. 4, that they'll enter into a development agreement with the city for the property as well as other properties in the area to be platted as Oak Bluff 9th Edition. That was also a condition of the plat approval. 5, that they'll install stormwater treatment facilities for the project prior to the start of any building construction. That also is a condition of the plat approval. And 6, the project will be constructed as provided in the general development plan. And then we provided motions to approve and to deny the request. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Dave. We'll open it up for discussion.
As usual, thank you for the very detailed explanation of this. We appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a lot of information there and very detailed. I mean,
I did get a phone call also, they were worried about the aesthetics of the way the project was gonna look, but from what I see, if the city falls through and the developer falls through, it's gonna be a nice looking project. And very well needed, I think, in town.
2 minor issues I would bring up is the rain gardens. I would just review that a little bit. They could end up being 4 different weed patches or not much of anything else, unless they're properly maintained and they aren't not something easy to work with usually. But it's good. And this is maybe something I shouldn't even talk about, but make sure the windows are large enough, because you only got light coming in one side of these rooms. And I've been in a lot of places where it's like you're going into a tunnel, because you've got small windows and you aren't bringing any natural light in, so your utility bills are higher and all those things too.
Yeah,
But I think it's very attractive.
the
Outside I see it's very, very attractive.
The provision of stormwater retention is something that is going to be with virtually every project from now on into the future. And so with a property like this, you can, have one, I suppose, big pond or one area to hold water. Or you can try to do, rain gardens. The site does drain from the northeast corner towards North Highland Avenue and 6 North Street. So that's why the rain gardens are located on that side of the property.
thank you. Any further discussion? This is a public hearing, so if anybody in the audience would like to be heard on this matter, you can please step up to the mic and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Joan Schrader, and I live at 1407 7th North. The back of my property abuts this new construction. And I have a lot of questions. I don't know if there's anyone here to answer them today, but I'll try anyway. I'd kind of like to know where the buildings are going to be in relation to my backyard.
Want me to pull that up?
John, is that
That's
something,
on the site plan.
is that something we could put up on the overhead? And maybe try to walk her through that? So,
Okay.
What's the dimension there, John?
So on the furthest, on this map, the property, or the furthest building, right, so the closest unit 303 would be to your property, would be 76 feet plus or minus.
Does that, is there going to be a patio out here as well?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Maybe the developer or owner of the property would like to address that question.
I don't know the answer to it either.
Is there a doorway off on that side of the property?
I think I saw one of the drawings, got the patio on each one.
Yeah, I thought so.
There's a patio door in the back here.
Yeah.
So, we're going to have a patio. Yeah, right there.
Well, the patio
Is that
would
a-
be
is that-
by the rain garden, wouldn't it?
Is that a hedge also
I don't
along?
want a rain garden either. I thought the rain gardens were gonna be over here.
It's a possible rain garden, yeah.
Is this a hedge along the property line here? Did I see possible hedge?
Somebody sent, I think it was you, who sent me a drawing, and there are trees listed on there along the edge of, these three properties here. And so, that's one of my questions. Are they really gonna plant trees there? And if so, what kind of trees?
The just one question, the rain gardens, the rain gardens are listed along Highland Avenue and then also along Sixth North, not on the other side.
This diagram
Okay, that's a
has-
different one, and I don't see a rain garden in my drawing of that.
That's a possible
Okay,
location.
Here's the rain garden,
yeah.
and then the drawing that Dave sent to me has trees along here. This one says possible hedge. Possible hedge along the edge.
So if you look at one of the renderings on that, that shows some evergreens.
Yes. So the question is the developer really going to plant trees there?
Some sort of trees, though, all the way along there.
And bushes?
Don't know what.
So what would you be looking for if I could?
Oh, we're looking for some privacy, along the edge, between our backyard and these units.
Okay, so you'd be looking for some type
We're
of,
not happy about the units, of course. We realize there's nothing we can do about that. But at the last meeting, we did request, sorry. At the last meeting, we did request privacy of some sort. I think we talked about a fence, and that was shot down for good reason. But that was one of the questions.
so some type of evergreen, that would be something that,
Yeah. Sure.
okay.
Dave, or Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of lots in New Ulm that you don't really have a lot to say what happens in your backyard. So I don't know why this would be any different. I mean, this is a very attractive unit. And I would like to see, yes, I'd like to see trees, but maybe you're the one who needs to plant the trees. I don't know.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because we are considering that.
I think there was
As
some
an option.
landscaping details in the conditions, wasn't there, on this one also?
Yeah, there's a requirement that they prepare a landscape plan, so
And they'll present that before they start the construction process.
that's a requirement of their building plans that it be included in that.
Okay.
Are these units going to be rented, sold? Is this an association? Is it private parties owning their section of it?
Association, and they'll be sold.
They will be sold? Okay. So the this is kind of like a condominium type thing where the person owns the inside but not the outside?
Exactly.
Okay. So then, who's gonna be responsible for maintaining the outside?
The association hires someone to maintain the lawn, bushes, whatever's outside, snow removal.
I can just,
What is the timeline for construction?
I'm sure spring,
Will all the buildings be built
no,
all at once?
no.
Which end are you starting on?
I'm thinking the Highland side.
Let's see.
Can we
Okay.
have whoever's speaking in the back come up and introduce themselves? I'm sorry, I don't know who it is.
yeah. We have one of the developer partners here, Dale Bushard, answering the questions from the audience, but we might have to have you step up to him. Yeah, we're having problems with that. Maybe if we could have you come up to John's seat up here by Dave here, and maybe, take a mic, up by Dave Schnobberg's here, maybe, and see if we can try to,
That works better.
yeah, hear you better, Dale.
Okay.
I guess the last thing is, what does the city plan to do about the traffic flow and the safety issue with traffic? There are times when we can't get out of our street at all. If I want to go shopping, if I want to turn left to come down the hill, I had better not do it at 3 o'clock. I got to get out there before 2:45 and get out there and get out of there, because I won't be able to get out until 3:30. And I can turn right, but then I run into traffic by the high school, and that's a bottleneck too, even with the roundabout there now. What are the plans for dealing with the congestion issue that the other person brought up in their email?
Well, I guess that'd be a good question for the city engineer. The amount of traffic generated by this complex or these three buildings isn't going to be significant.
It's gonna be comparable to having 12 homes there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Single homes, so if we had 12 single homes versus 12 condominiums, you're in the same boat. It's just
I
part of the
also-
nature of progress with the development.
Well, but then something has to be done about that. There's a problem down at the end of Highland too, when we go out that way to go to Walmart or to Cashwise. That is becoming a very dangerous corner. And so that's only going to get worse the more homes that are built up by us. And there is room for expansion up there with more homes down the line further. And I'm just wondering, I'm concerned that, I'm kind of blessed because I can choose to go out pretty much whatever time of day I wish because I work from my home. But a lot of people don't have that option. And so I try to go out when it's not so busy. But not everybody has that luxury to do that. So that really is a concern that I think needs to be addressed before this project is approved. I think that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
In regards to that, Dave, we could ask Joe Stadheim, our city engineer, to, discuss any future for that development to bring back to council, or maybe traffic patterns or traffic counts.
Yeah, I think,
But-
Joe would be the logical person. I did have a chance to just briefly talk to him about this, and, this number of units, as you indicated, isn't really that large. If we had single-family dwellings there, we probably would have 3 garages rather than 2. So, from that standpoint, I think probably going to see fewer trips per day from these units than you would from a typical single-family dwelling.
Thank you, Dave.
But I will ask him, specifically about that. And this matter, if you make a decision today, will be going to the city council at their next meeting, and he can respond at that time.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Chris?
Chris Dalton, City Manager, Commissioner President, Commissioners. I would concur with Dave, kind of on that assessment. And realistically, the city would only be able to do things on the city side of things because that intersection on Broadway is controlled by MnDOT. That would have to be a request to MnDOT to put a traffic signal or something out there to help alleviate some of that, make it a little bit safer. I know we have tried in the past to do signaling and stuff on Broadway, and their response generally is there's not enough traffic to warrant some type of signal, but it is something we can look into because, a lot of development is going on up in that area, and it is going to start becoming more and more populated up there. So that is something, that Joe, the city engineer, can start laying some foundation to see what we can do in that area. But then, we would have to look on our side if there is something we can do to help alleviate traffic. But Joe will be able to get that information to council.
Chris, you're referring to the North Highland there?
Yep.
Now, we don't control that as a city, is that a county or state aid?
It's a
State.
So
So-
MnDOT controls that intersection there.
So we're tied as a city, just to base it off of.
On the Broadway side of it.
Correct.
But towards the Fifth North, the only other way you could control it is either putting roundabouts or four-way stops.
Yep. Okay.
And something like that, so.
Living on the other side of Highland from where Joan lives, I can share the concern when my kids need to take a left to go to the high school in the morning. Boy, they got a lot of time because they're sitting there quite a while. And, I understand that maybe goes beyond the scope of what this planning commission controls or influences. But yeah, I think that's a legitimate thing to bring up to the engineer
Yeah, we can
in
bring
the
those
spot where we can control it.
Yep, we can bring those concerns.
Yeah, I believe MnDOT has looked at the intersection of, Highway 14 with North Highland Avenue, and I do believe it's on their schedule for some type of improvement, but it's a number of years down the
We
road.
just did a survey for it with the community, so I'm not sure if it's closed already or not.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak on behalf of the proposed development?
No, I'm not good.
Got,
So Chairman, I used
Yeah.
to live on 11th North, and when we came up to Highland, we couldn't turn left. I think it was only every other block you could turn. And I think that wasn't a real good solution, because all the people did was go down the end of the block and then do a U-turn and go, and a U-turn is a little more dangerous than, or as well dangerous as crossing left. So, yeah, there needs to be a good plan for that, whether they build these or not. I think the area needs some looking at.
thank you. Yep, please step up to the mic and state your name and address for the record,
I'm
please.
Tammy Ponson, and I live at 1421 7th North. So, actually, I can show you right up here. I think. Which side is?
On the left-hand bottom corner is where you are.
Okay, are
Right
you
there.
number 9 there?
Yep, yep.
So, we're right here, so we're gonna have the houses here and the duplexes back, or the quads back here. And I'm not saying that they're not attractive, but they're big. And as some of you know, that we built, or we didn't build here, but we bought our area just because we were told that we would have that green space behind us. And we have the view, and this is, you know, I understand other places have homes right in their backyard also, but these are really big, that's why I'm concerned, and, you know, it's just, it's hard to have that happen. And I was just wondering how far, I know you probably said it already, but how deep? So for right here, we're now a driveway. Okay, so for right,
Amy, your question, how deep it is? If I'm
Yes.
looking at the print here, I see 96 feet from a unit to your property line.
Some of them are 76, two
Correct.
76, one is 96.
Yeah.
okay, because, I mean, and I know that I can't do anything about it, but, I mean, because we used to be able to see over the city then and over the valley, so we won't be able to see, that'll be obstructed completely for us. And then also, I was concerned about the traffic too. We also have that daycare there, and that, when I go to work, that's my concern, because there are lots of cars going in there 24/7, in and out of there. So I know that, you know, whenever that gets considered, I wouldn't mind a roundabout or a four-way stop. But, and then I don't know, like you said with maintenance, that'll be taken care of by the association.
All right.
Okay. So I guess that's all I maybe have to say. I didn't plan on speaking, so.
All right, thank you.
Just two questions, just to clarify, they're one-story units, correct?
That is correct.
Right. And then, I'm just curious, do you know about the average price of one of the units that you'll sell them for roughly?
We're gonna try and market them inside. You can do whatever you want. Some people like to spend a fortune for kitchen cabinets or whatever inside. They can do their choice if they pre-buy it.
So would you
I'm sure it's
consider
in the
them within
300s.
Affordable housing price range?
Pardon?
Would you consider them within the affordable housing price range?
Is 300 in affordable housing? 300s, I'm sure they're gonna be in the 300s. Yeah, there's a lot going into the project. It ain't just buying the land. What comes afterwards is,
Absolutely, they're beautiful, so I understand that, I was just curious.
hopefully we get her there.
Any further discussion from the commissioners? So we'll look to close the public hearing. We'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to accept.
I'll make that motion with conditions.
I'd second that.
We've got a motion and a second to accept with conditions as stated. Everybody signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. This will go to the January 5th council meeting for recommendation for approval. Item 6
Sure, I get a list of that sometime.
is
Mike,
6.1, consider for approval the final plot to the Airport Industrial Park 3rd Edition. We'll look for staff report on this.
Okay, the applicant, property owner in this particular case is the city of New Ulm. The current legal description of the property is part of the east half of the southwest quarter of Section 13, Township 110 North, Range 31 West. Street address is 2216 Jacob Street. The property is generally north of Barron's Boulevard and west of Thompson Street. At the last meeting, the city council approved the preliminary plat with conditions. That was on December 15th. Deadline for a decision on this matter is February 21st, 2021. Land use designation of the property is industry. Industry is also the land use designation in the comprehensive plan for property to the northeast and west and business to the south. Property is zoned I-1. Surrounding property is zoned I-1 to the northeast and west, and to the south it's B3. Current site use is cropland, and cropland exists to the northwest. Walmart and the strip mall to the south, and cropland and windings to the east. No notice is required. Public comment, none to date. Status of utilities, that information is provided. The site can be, has utilities around it. In order to serve the lots within the proposed subdivision, further extensions are necessary. Comprehensive plan does not designate a park within the platted area. The property is intended for use as an industrial park. The plat extends Jacob Street and Sampson Street to their intersection. The extension of the two streets creates two lots to the east of Jacobs and then one lot to the west. Total platted area is 13.65 acres, and of this amount, 2.05 acres is for two streets. There are no minimum lot depth requirements in the I-1 zoning district. Current subdivision requirements and lot dimensions that are shown on the plat are as follows, and there is a listing of both lot area and frontage requirements, and all of the lots comply with those requirements. The status of the conditions, the platting fee has been paid, and the electronic file of the plat, that information will be provided by the land surveyor. There are two attachments. There is the final plat and an aerial photograph of the property. Staff would recommend approval of the final plat with the one condition, and that being that the electronic file would be provided. So that's our remaining condition, and then there are two motions provided.
Thank you, Dave. Open it up for discussion.
No issues or questions? I just want to say it's nice to see this area is getting developed in this way. It's a good thing.
Dave, then would a couple of these lots, and would we be selling them, listing them for sale, or just?
We are discussing with a company the potential purchase by them of the lot behind Walmart.
Okay, but the other two would be listed for sale, or?
Yeah, they would be available.
Okay.
I think, just, as a follow-up, we would prefer that the lots that are currently in the existing industrial park be developed first before we start to actively market these. But they would be available if someone approached us, yes.
But if we're putting the roadway through, we would put utilities into those?
I would think that while we will plat the roadway,
road.
we probably will not extend Sampson Street, and we will only do a small portion of Jacob Street to get access to that lot.
To the developed part?
Yeah.
Okay. That kind of helps me understand, and that would be, I get it.
I'd make a motion to approve with the one condition.
Second?
We got a motion and a second to approve with conditions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We're gonna go to item 7.1, simple lot divisions. Consider for approval lot division of north 100 feet of Lot 4, Block 1, Prairie Land, First Edition. We look for staff report.
Okay. The applicant for this request is Ryan Herzog. The legal description of the property is the north 100 feet of Lot 4, Block 1, Prairie Land, First Edition. The street address is 2007 North Spring Street. The property is located north of 20th North Street and west of North Spring Street. The deadline for the decision on this application is February 9th, 2021. The comprehensive plan designates this area as industry. Surrounding land uses to the north, east, south, and west are also industry per the comprehensive plan. Zoning designation is I-2, the general industrial district, and surrounding zoning to the north, east, and south is also I-2, and then to the west, it's I-1, the planned industrial district. Currently, the site is used for vehicle storage, and also part of it is vacant. Current area land uses include to the north, vacant property and storage buildings. To the east, MR Paving and Excavating Incorporated. To the south, storage buildings, and then to the west, J.R. Schugel Trucking Company. No notice was required for this simple lot division. As far as public comments go, there have none have been received to date. To describe this project, the property has a width of 100 feet and a total lot area of approximately 30,900 square feet, or 0.71 acres. The parcel depth varies due to the curve in North Spring Street. The applicant proposes to divide the property into two 50-foot wide parcels. So parcel A would have approximately 16,317 square feet, or would be 0.37 acres, and parcel B would have approximately 14,583 square feet, or be approximately 0.34 acres. The proposed legal descriptions would be as follows. Parcel A, the south 50 feet of the north 100 feet of Lot 4, Block 1, Prairie Land First Edition, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota. And then parcel B would be the north 100 feet of Lot 4, Block 1, Prairie Land First Edition, except for the southerly 50 feet thereof, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota. Parcel A would have approximate dimensions of 50 feet by 329.4 feet. And then that would be the south property line, and then it would be 295.1 feet on the north property line. Parcel B would have approximate dimensions of 50 by 295 on the south property line, and then 50 by 261.1 on the north property line. There are no lot area, lot depth, or lot width requirements in the I-2 zoning district. There is a pending sale of parcel A to the adjoining property owner to the north. There are 5 attachments with this item. Attachment 1 is the applicant's letter. That also has the legal descriptions on it. Attachment 2 is the site location map. Attachment 3 is a zoning map. Attachment 4 is a lot area map, and then attachment 5 is ground level photos. Staff would recommend approval of the simple lot division since it complies with city code requirements. The approval would be subject, or the approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant would record the resolution authorizing the simple lot division with the Brown County Recorder's Office. And then 2, the applicant will inform the city by letter as to how the existing special assessments assigned to the property will be split between the 2 parcels. Should note that there is only 1 water and 1 sewer service for the proposed 2 parcels. If a second set of services is desired, it would need to be installed from the mains in the street to the parcel. This would be the owner's responsibility to do that. There's 1 driveway. A shared driveway is permitted. It would be the owner's responsibility to pay the cost for any new driveways that would be proposed. And that would conclude the staff report.
Thank you, John.
I might
Dave?
note that the reason for the notes is that's information that we will be providing to the applicants so that they're aware of this information.
I make a motion to recommend approval.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second to recommend approval. Any further discussion? And I guess I have a couple of questions for staff in regards to this. And I guess one of the concerns I have is, you say the property's currently being used for vehicle storage. Does that comply with our city ordinance? You know, is it zoned for vehicle storage as a junkyard or salvage? You know, does that comply? And is it gonna be cleaned up?
Well, they haven't applied for a conditional use permit to have a junkyard. But as far as I understand, the applicant also isn't selling parts necessarily from that location or has any kind of retail operation going on there. But we have been in contact also with the applicant about cleaning up those cars on that property. And the applicant has informed us that he is trying to or is attempting to get rid of those vehicles that are stored on the property.
Could we put it in the conditions in our recommendation to the council? You know, add a third condition that the vehicles be cleaned up prior to being approval? Or give them a time frame to try to be realistic? Otherwise,
Normally, your conditions should be, you know, associated with the action that we're taking. I would suggest that, you know, we can contact the property owner and discuss this issue with him, and we would be prepared to share that with the city council at their meeting.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay.
Good point.
Yep, I appreciate that question. I wondered about that myself.
Got
You
about
know,
20
the
cars
property
there.
is split in half. It looks like the back half is just going to become a place to store cars. Which is concerning.
If you look at the way it's split
Oh, split
along,
lane.
yeah.
Got it,
so
got it.
Both
But, yeah,
properties have junk cars on them.
And it's part of our blight with our
Right.
863,
Yeah.
you know.
It looks like it's junk cars and a semi or something. I don't know
So-
what that other thing is. Yeah.
It's obviously been out of the way, but now that there's an opportunity and if it's gonna be developed or sold, you know, let's clean it up, see if they're willing to clean it up and work with us. That's my 2 cents on it.
Good point.
Further discussion on the motion? If not, we've got a motion and a second to approve with conditions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 7.2, consider for approval a simple lot division of Outlot 121. Staff report.
Okay, the applicant for the simple lot division is Greg Thomas, and the property owner is James Thomas. The street address is 1314 Westridge Road, and the property is generally located north of Westridge Road and east of North Highland Avenue. Deadline for a decision on this application is February 9th, 2021. The comprehensive plan designates this area for business uses. Surrounding land uses to the north would be business and high-density residential. To the west, business. To the south, low-density residential. And then to the east business. This property is zoned B2 Service Business District. Surrounding zoning includes to the north, the R3 Multiple Family District, B3, the General Business District, and the B2. To the west is B2, to the south is R2, which is the Single and Two-Family Residence District, and R1, which is the Single Family Residence District. To the east is B3. Currently, the site is used for an office building, which would be the Upper Midwest Management Corporation, and then a storage building. Current area land uses include to the north, Hillside and Woodstone Senior Living. To the west, storage buildings and commercial uses. To the south, Highway 14, single and two-family dwelling units. And then to the east, Cashwise grocery store. No notice was required for a simple lot division. As far as public comment, to date, we have not received any public comments on this application. To describe the project, the property has a total lot area of 91,192 square feet, or is 2.1 acres. The property has a notable slope from west to east. Located on the property are 2 building areas that are described below here. One is an office building and adjoining parking lot are located on the west side of the property, and the building footprint total is 2,132 square feet. A storage building and a smaller parking lot are located on the east side of the property, and this building totals 3,264 square feet. The applicant proposes to divide the property into 2 parcels with 1 building on each parcel. So on top of the hill would be the office building, at the bottom of the hill would be the storage building. Parcel A containing the office building would have approximately 66,033 square feet, or be 1.5 acres. Parcel B containing the storage building would have 25,159 square feet, or be 0.6 acres. We have the proposed legal descriptions. Parcel A would be outlot 121, except the east 90.5 feet as measured at right angles to and parallel with the northeasterly line of said outlot 121, which lies northerly of the northerly right-of-way of Westwood Road as platted and recorded. And then parcel B would be the east 90.5 feet of outlot 121 as measured at right angles to and parallel with the northeasterly line of said outlot 121, which lies northerly of the northerly right-of-way of Westwood Road as platted and recorded. The parcel lines of parcel A would vary in distance and bearing. Parcel B would have dimensions of 90.5 feet by 278 feet. There are no lot area, lot width, or lot depth requirements in the B2 zoning district, and the B2 zoning district has a side yard setback of 10 feet. It also has a lot coverage limitation of 70% for buildings. We do have 5 attachments. Attachment 1 is the applicant's letter. Attachment 2 is the simple lot division survey. Attachment 3 is a site location photo. Attachment 4 is a zoning map. Attachment 5 are photos of the site. Staff would recommend approval of the simple lot division since it complies with city code requirements. We would recommend one condition, that the lot would be effective with the filing of the resolution approving this request with the Brown County Recorder's Office. And then we provided 2 potential motions, one to approve and one to deny the application. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you, John. Open it up for discussion. Commissioners? I've got a question for staff. Do we have any concerns with utilities, that they're separate already, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I
a
don't even know that the storage shed necessarily has any utilities.
I didn't even, I guess I'm getting
It
at
does.
is,
Yeah, it does.
do we need to worry about any easements or anything, like they're coming in right off of Westridge, directly parallel to their property then, just assuming?
I believe they are coming in right off of Westridge, but I will verify that before the city council meeting.
Okay. That's all I had. Anybody else have anything?
On the aerial, it looks like on the upper Midwest Management side, it looks like they have plenty of land there, but I just want to make sure, compared to their pavement and the building size, they're not covering up too much of the land, correct? Their percentage is fine?
Yeah, they meet the requirements that the code has.
Any further discussion?
Motion to approve with conditions?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve with conditions. Any further discussion? If not, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8.1, discussion on comprehensive plan, park, and trails section.
Okay. If you want to, this item could, be continued to our next meeting, or we can discuss this issue if you wish. I'll leave that up to the commission.
Yeah, I guess we'll leave it up for the commissioners. We've already been here an hour and a half. If you wanted to, I don't know if I want to sit here for hours, but maybe we just do a little maybe we do a little overview and then
Sure.
think about it as a little homework.
Yep.
And people can, come back with other questions or concerns.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Okay, so we discussed this particular topic at last month's meeting, and I think one of the things that we noted is that the Planning Commission is the city's, official planning agency, and that's by state statute, and one of the responsibilities you have In that capacity is that you're responsible for the comprehensive plan, both its enactment as well as its maintenance and its modification. And so, it's kind of the commission's responsibility to kind of be watching what's going around the community and to periodically look at how does that impact, what our comprehensive plan says. And so, we talked about the plan having 6 sections and having really 3 main sections, one of which is park and trails. And within park and trails, it talks about the planning commission, guiding the acquisition of land for new parks, as well as providing, some, again, serving as a guide for improvements to existing underdeveloped as well as undeveloped parks. So you kind of have both a monitoring role, but I think you also have the opportunity to participate in that process. So we've the Park and Recreation Commission is also considering this issue. And I think we've provided you with materials that they've received at their last 2 meetings. And I see Mr. Schmitz is in the back of the room. And Tom, maybe could you just give us a brief report on where the commission is currently at with this subject?
Certainly. Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Department. Planning Commission, thank you for taking a look at this topic. In the packet, I'm on page 89 of 99 in your packet. This topic has to do with the fact that there are 12 areas in our city that are identified in the comprehensive plan for possible potential future parks. Of those 12 areas, some of them are owned and designated already by the city for parks. Some of them are owned by the city but not designated, and some of them are neither owned nor designated, but they're identified conceptually by location in the comprehensive plan. So those 12 areas are on page 89 and 90 of your packet today. This topic has come at us because one of those 12 areas has consistently, over the past few years, requested acquisition and development of a neighborhood park for them, their families, their children. I think we all know what that area is in the Upper Cottonwood Street area. The Dakota West subdivision is part of the Upper Cottonwood Street area. And so as that has come to the city a number of times over the past few years, the Park Commission has realized that there are 11 other areas in town identified for potential park use. Some of those are still way out and don't need consideration because they have no development near them at all. We've narrowed it down to, I would say, 6 that may be considered as ready for development. And I know the Community Development Director has requested you to consider narrowing that down to 3. The Park Commission is going to be conducting their second work session on this topic next week. We've created kind of a matrix system to identify criteria and ranking to try to determine an objective ranking system, even though some of the criteria are hard to quantify and may end up being more subjective. But we hope to finalize that ranking system at the January Park Commission meeting in hopes of finalizing the actual scoring of these areas at the February Park Commission meeting. I think that's a little bit of a background.
Thank you, Tom.
If I can comment, the Park and Recreation Commission meets the second Monday of the month, so prior to our next meeting, we would have that information as far as what they're looking at from a ranking standpoint. One other piece of information that I kind of found interesting is on page, it's page 96. And it talks about a neighborhood park service area coverage map, and that's something that's, you have in your packet as well. And I'd like to thank John, he kind of cleaned up that map, and so it's a lot easier to read now. And I think it's easier to see the different areas that we're talking about. But that particular map shows that approximately 90% of all city residents are located within a third of a mile of a park. And then it identifies where the gaps are, you know, in our system. And you'll note that it references, you know, the Cottonwood Street area as being one of those areas, as well as there are three others that they talk about as well. And so I thought I've looked at some other, you can get material online that you know, talks about your community and your park areas and your coverage, and I've seen two different ones now, and they had us at 91%. So you know, it's but that's a fairly accurate number. It seems. So,
Tom?
Commissioners, I just have two quick other items to add. One is when you're considering which park area or which area of our community we might consider for acquisition or development of a neighborhood park, it's important to consider that component, that aspect, but also other community development aspects, such as right-of-way acquisition or streets or road or utility extensions, things like that. So there's that I wanted to mention. And then finally, I'm sure you're aware of what the Parkland Dedication Fund is, that there are funds available for land acquisition and/or development of neighborhood parks. And that fund, I think, has over $200,000 in it. Just to mention that areas that have been developed, developers have paid into that fund over many years. So those were two more things I wanted to mention.
yeah, I'd like to also note that you know, I had identified in the staff report about possibly identifying 3 areas that you think should be given consideration. Rod, this is your last meeting, so you get to identify your 3 areas early if you want to.
I'll let you know. by
You'll let me
email.
know, okay? That sounds fair enough.
It's a lot to consider there, but I think definitely that Cottonwood area is an area that probably has brought the most attention, because it's developed rather rapidly, and I can see that there's a couple other areas. Oh, one thing, attachment 2, page 91. It's got number 2 is the archery range. I believe that's moved to Tower Road, hasn't it, Tom?
Yes, it has.
Yes.
Yeah, the map isn't, map 5.2, or figure 5.2, which is attachment 2, there are some mistakes on that.
When I do have conversations about the parks in the city, people are just amazed of what we have accomplished so far. That 1/3 of a mile is just unheard of in a lot of cities. And I think I pushed for this when I was on the Park and Rec Board, that our commission, that I'd like to see some usage numbers, like trail cameras, and see some of the parks, how much they're actually used, would be a good way to put the community and say, hey, this is what's actually happening in these places we develop, put money into them.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions for staff? I guess we have a little homework to do, and staff will present us with some more information after the Park and Rec's work session. So we'll have that in time for our next Planning Commission meeting, which should be the last Thursday of January. So we will table 7.2, and then we will go, 8.1, and we will go to 8.2 city council decisions concerning planning commission matters in December 2020.
Okay, at the City Council's December 15th meeting, they, at that, were asked to renew a number of gravel pit licenses. And this request was made by MR Paving and Excavating. They tend to either own or lease property. I think they've got 3 different sites now that they requested licenses for. And one of them was called, I'm going to call it the Holla Pit. It's just off of North Garden Street in the vicinity of maybe 14th North. That particular area, apparently this past year has been subject to a lot of sand being blown onto the residential properties to the south. And apparently a fairly significant amount. And so there was a concern about remedying that problem. And so there was discussion about, at the meeting, about what to do with that. We have an interesting process in dealing with gravel mining, in that we require them to get a conditional use permit to mine. And with the conditional use permit, we have more recently required an operations plan which stipulates how the mining is supposed to take place. And then we require that they also annually get a license to mine. And so it seems like we're kind of doubling up with our requirements. And I think that's something that we need to look at as we go through this zoning ordinance update, as to how do we kind of remedy having this duplication, it appears to me, of efforts, or at least to talk about that. Anyway, MR is supposed to complete some work, and it goes back to the city council in 60 days. They approved at that meeting the preliminary plat of the Airport Industrial Park, 3rd edition, as we talked about. And then they denied on a 4-to-1 vote the operation of a part-time auto repair business in a detached garage at 1315 South Washington Street. That was for Scott Hoppitz. And the reasons for doing so were the ones cited by the Planning Commission. And then the council also provided him with 60 days to complete his business operations. At that meeting, they approved the city budget for 2021. So we'll be back in January. And they voted to participate in the Minnesota City Participation Program, which is a program of the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. So this is a state program. And it's a program that helps with closing costs and loans for home buyers. I think it's primarily first-time home buyers. So it's another, I guess, tool that's available to hopefully help people, with home purchases. And then finally, they had a work session that focused on operations at New Ulm Steel and Recycling, and the fact that there had been some comments provided by adjoining property owners on the operation of that particular facility. And so the owner, as well as the neighbors, were present for that discussion. And do you have anything further that you would offer about that, or?
No, nothing further on that one.
Okay. That would conclude.
Thank you, Dave. And now we'll go on to item 8.3, discuss the process and schedule for review of the city's zoning ordinance.
Okay, for a long time now, it has been our goal to provide a draft zoning ordinance for consideration by the Planning Commission. And it has also been our goal to complete that process by December 31st, 2020. We have put together a sufficient amount of material to start the review process. We internally decided that this meeting would probably not be the best time to start that process, given the fact that we have two new members that are going to be joining the commission at our January meeting. So we're going to kind of push things off for a month and then start at that time. And our intent is to provide information first off to the city attorney, have the city attorney review it, and then to take that information and present it to you. We thought that it didn't make sense to give you information, have you review it, and then have the city attorney take a look at it and say, no, we don't want it. That's something that we shouldn't do, or he would have concerns. So we'll start with him, then move it to you, and it's very likely that we're going to have things going back and forth for a period of time. It's just the nature of what we're dealing with. So don't be surprised to see that taking place.
Dave, are you going to go through like a section at a time, or are you talking to do a couple sections?
Okay, so what we're going to do is, we'll start with table of contents, and then it's our hope to, we're going to be giving Roger the first two sections. And those are the sections on, it's kind of an introductory section about, the purpose and how it will be, take place, enacted. And then the second section has to do with all of the different actions that will be taken could be taken by the commission, a listing of all of that, and what that process would be and what our procedures would be as far as how we deal with, an application that's presented and what kind of information is required. And it's going to be very, very different from what we currently have. But those are what we would give to Roger, and then hopefully Roger will have that completed by your January meeting. So it's our intent to give Roger one or two sections at a time, because, we can't throw the whole thing at him, because he's just won't have the time to do the whole thing. So if we give him, pieces, we think that's the best way to go. And the ordinance lays out well for that purpose. I think it'll make sense that we'll progress kind of through this process in a reasonable manner. And one of the other things that we are looking at doing is getting everybody a 3-ring binder, and we're going to suggest that we do it by paper, because it's just, personally, I find it easier to look at paper and to be able to turn pages and then to go back. There may be others that are more comfortable doing it, digitally or electronically, and we can accommodate that as well. I expect that we probably, as I mentioned before, are going to be changing things, correcting things, and it's easier with paper to take out one page and throw in a new page, and so that's how we would propose to do it. I guess ultimately that's going to be kind of your decision on how you individually want to, proceed with this.
Dave, in regards to the binder, I think I still have one from about 5 years ago when we
You
started
could,
this
you
process.
could.
So I can bring that one in.
Can you
and
dust it off?
I'll bring it in, and then you can,
I'm kind of worn through the David, I'll drop off the binder.
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if we can send an email to Commissioner Golden that left early. Maybe he has his binder too, that he could drop it back off, so we're.
Yeah. Now, we're thinking that, actually, this is something that we did last time as well, that it might be easiest if we have, special meetings just to talk about this topic. I think the last time we had the meetings, we were maybe, 90% complete with the things that we looked at. I think this time we're going to be much closer to a finished product. So I think the review this time will, hopefully when you get finished, that's what's going to the city council then. The last time it was more kind of a preliminary review that we were doing.
Are you taking account when you're working on these plain language and using that in your wording as much as possible so that they can be very easily understood by the citizen? I know to a certain extent you can in some of the legal aspects, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're being.
Yeah, that's what our intent is. And, but, as you indicated, we have to kind of balance that with the legal requirements. And so, but that's one of the functions that the planning commission gets to, perform, is to take a look at it and say, this is kind of hard to understand, or this doesn't make sense. And so we'll take a look at it. I will say that, we have borrowed liberally from other communities. And so hopefully, if they've done their job well, hopefully you'll find that we have done our job well.
And is the recommendation still for plain language in 8th grade reading level? Do you know?
Don't know about that.
Well, Ashley, I would note, one of the main differences you'll see between what we currently have and what we're going towards is it's a lot more descriptive, so there's nothing left out there for assumption. It's very detailed as to what is or what is not allowed, things like that. So I think for the person who'd be reading it and trying to comprehend what our code requires, for instance, for a developer, they should be easily be able to read what is being proposed and work through that.
Yeah, we also will be providing more graphics. And I don't know, I hope that we can also be able to provide on the side of our pages where you could click on a notation, which will take you then to maybe another item that would help you better understand maybe that particular item.
And will the online versions then be searchable as well for?
Yeah. Yeah, and so looking through many different ordinances, some communities use a specific publisher. And to be honest with you, I find that very hard to navigate through. It's easier, in my opinion, to have a PDF and do a word search for what you're looking for.
Except, if you don't mind, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The only problem with that is that's not SEO capable, search engine optimization capable. So if someone's just typing in the Google search, New Ulm City Code pets, it wouldn't pull that out of that PDF.
Sure, okay.
So that's something to be mindful of.
Okay,
Especially for those who might not realize that it didn't exist.
sure. Okay.
Any more comments, or discussion, or questions? I guess, you referenced, I don't remember if it was either Dave or John, about going through it, but have we talked to, or was it a thought that we might have developers look at it to see that they understand it? Just the reference, and maybe they get their feedback too? Because we're not, as commissioners, we're not developers, but if there, possibly seek some, input in that capacities. Just a thought.
We certainly can make that offer
Yeah.
to people and see if they would be interested in doing that for us, sure. Actually, it's developers that we deal with, typically, they're used to this stuff, and they don't, they'll call us up and say, I noticed in section such and such this. So, some people use these tools a lot, and then there are others that don't, and that's where the challenge is.
Okay.
It's the person that's maybe doing one project or, every 10 years or so. That's where
Okay. Would the League of Minnesota Cities look at this also and give any feedback, or not?
not typically.
Not typically?
It's been our experience in dealing with the league that they almost always refer us back to our city attorney for a final decision
Okay.
on an item.
Okay, it's good to know. Any more on item 8.3? If not, we'll go to item 8.4, Heritage Preservation Commission activities. Anything to
They
report?
did not meet in the month of December.
So we have nothing there to report, but I'd like to thank Rodney Cardinals for his 2 terms. So that would be, what, 6 years that he's completed, and he's bared with us through the unique year here, trying to, with the call-in, the meetings, the Zoom meetings, and attending, and good input. And he's gonna,
It was enjoyable,
yeah, thank you.
very enlightening as far as what goes on in the city too.
Yeah, thank you for your willingness to serve within the community. Now we can sign you up for another commission. Okay. Okay,
6 years at Park and Rec and 6 years here, so.
yeah. Well, thank you. And we also have Jeff Golden, who had to leave early, but we'd like to thank Jeff Golden for his 2 terms on the Planning Commission also. So it takes a lot for someone to give up, 6 years to willingly serve once a month to come in for some time. But I feel we have a pretty good diverse group, and, we're learning, and we, it takes a whole team to, to answer the questions and to seek the answers, so. And we're gonna have 2 new commissioners come the January meeting.
Correct.
So,
Subject to approval of the mayor's appointment by the city council.
so. No further business. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
I got a question. Did she just